I'm super excited and thrilled about youth coming back and coming here and Thursday nights in September. That's going to be super fun. I love youth. So if you guys don't know, some of my background, I started out as a kids pastor, then went to youth pastor, and I still have the energy right now for another year or two, maybe, for youth and kids. So I can't wait to get all that energy out on Thursday nights. So come and serve with me. Come and be a part of this, because it's going to be super fun as we're reaching the youth of our community and doing stuff together. And adults, we also don't want you to think that we forgot about you too, because we're going to have something for everyone. So Thursday nights, it's youth, then kids. Kids program is kind of like Awanas, but not Awanas. We're going to call it the Not Awanas Awanas. So then we also have adult classes that are going to be going, which we're starting off together with Family Worship Center and Rooted. And then right after Rooted, we're going to have multiple different classes and adult groups that some are going to be Family Worship Center, some are hosted by us, but we're joining all of them. So anybody can be a part of anything on those nights. So it's going to be super fun. So come, and Thursday nights, it's going to be all midweek here in the building. So super excited about that. Also super cognizant of the fact that when we get into that season and that incredible season that we're about to be in, which is amazing, it's going to be a busy season. It's going to be a crazy season. There's going to be so much going on. And as I'm thinking about that season coming up to be, the one big thing that keeps coming to my mind is we probably need to rest before it. So that way we can actually be charged up. Because here's the thing, I don't want you guys actually volunteering and coming in with an empty tank. Right? We need to rest. We need to have some rest before all of the busyness and the busy season. Otherwise, you're going to be just in an empty tank that's there. And you know what? We all know about that too, don't we? How many people here know that how important rest is? Right? Pretty much everybody can say, okay, look, I know how important rest is. Rest is super important. We know it's so important. Doctors tell us this all the time. Medical science tells us this all the time. Tells us how important rest is. Not just sleep, but actual downtime. You know that if you don't have actual downtime and actual rest, then your blood pressure goes up. All of a sudden, your body gets tired. There's all kinds of things. Did you know, I learned this week. I didn't know this before, but did you know that in the United States right now, the life expectancy of males and females is going down? It's actually going down a lot. We used to be up in the 80s of life expectancy. Now we're down to 72. And they say one of the big reasons why is because we as an American culture, we stink at rest. We are not good at resting. We are not good at taking that time and doing that. Did you know also in countries right now that it's ingrained in the culture where they rest a lot, where they have enough rest and they know how to actually rest. They know how to have downtime. You guys ever been to Greece? You ever been to some of the Latin countries and so forth? There's a lot more downtime. Did you know their life expectancy is going up? Even though their medical system might be inferior or a little bit less than the U.S. system, their life expectancy is going up because they have more rest. And they also don't have Taco Bell, which I firmly believe probably kills us too. So that's a big thing. But I would tell you that rest is so important. I remember when I was a kid, my grandpa, he would always take me out and he would give me lessons of life. And one of those lessons of life he told me was, you need to rest. Yes, work hard, do good things, but if you don't rest, you're going to fail at everything. And we see that because when you're unrested, you make bad decisions. When you're unrested, all of a sudden it's harder to follow Jesus, isn't it? It becomes harder. All of a sudden the devil starts to win, the evil one starts to win, or the world starts to win, where all of a sudden it's harder and harder to follow Jesus. We see that. I'm a firm believer that the evil one has that big trick. The big trick is when you are the most unrested to add a ton of stressful situations all of a sudden, because you're going to make all the wrong decisions in there. We know it's important. We need to rest. It's not just a health thing. But we also know in the United States that we stink at rest. I stink at rest. I'm going to tell you guys this. I was telling this to the team this morning. I'm preaching to myself as much as I'm preaching to any and every one of you. I just actually went to, so I'll tell you how I come up with some of these sermons. I come up with them months in advance. Sometimes I'll be praying about it and I'll come up with these things and I have a sermon schedule that goes months in advance. This sermon, which is just a 1-week sermon, we're starting a brand new thing next week. We're going through Acts, but this one was actually planned several months ago. And for the last 3.5, 4 weeks, I haven't taken one day off. And then this week, when I looked at my sermon notes, I'm like, whoa. I should probably do what I'm preaching. Like, this is a big thing, right? So we know it's important. But we also know that in America, it's not just that we stink at taking rest, because we actually have days that we plan out for rest, don't we? We do. Like, we have weekends. We have Saturday and Sunday, and we say those are the days that you're supposed to rest. Mostly those are the days we watch Netflix. So those are the days that we're supposed to rest. Oh, we also have like 2 weeks vacation. How many of you guys get 2 weeks vacation? We also have holidays, right? Sometimes you have the holidays. And so we plan times in to rest. But the latest statistics actually show us that workers that are going on vacation, after they come back from a 2-week vacation, it's 49% of workers say they're burned out on the very first day they get back from vacation, as if the 2 weeks didn't matter at all. Another 25% say they get burned out within that very first week, as if the 2 weeks didn't matter. The same statistics are true of the weekends. You go out on the weekend and you're like, I'm just working for the weekend. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get to this weekend. And then what happens on Monday? Someone gets a case of the Mondays, right? All of a sudden we feel unrested. So what this actually tells us is that we in America, it's not just that we're bad at taking rest sometimes, but we're actually bad at rest. We rest wrong. That's right, you heard me right. We rest wrong. There is actually a right way to rest and a wrong way to rest, and we often just rest in the wrong ways. So today, I want to teach you guys, and I want to talk to you, and like I said, I'm preaching to myself as much as I'm preaching to any one of you. I want to teach you guys some tips on how to actually rest right from the author of us. From the author who actually created us, who created the Bible, who created the world, who knows the most about rest. What does God have to say about rest? How do we actually rest in the right ways? So today, let's get in it. Before we do, let's go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you so much for this time. We pray, Jesus, that you would just continue to be with us and guide our hearts and minds towards you. Bring your word to our hearts and minds and help us, Lord, to get into this message of rest and show us how to rest in your ways, Lord. We love you. We thank you. In your holy and precious name we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, so today, as we go into how to actually rest, we have to acknowledge the very first time that rest comes into the Bible. Because it comes right at the very beginning. At the very, very beginning, here is Jesus. All of a sudden, here comes Jesus, right? Jesus is there, or not Jesus, I'm sorry, here's God. God is there, and here's God, and he creates the whole world. He creates everything, right? He creates you, he creates light, he creates dark, he creates everything in the whole world. And then on the seventh day, he did what? He rested. On the seventh day, it tells us that he rested. It says this in Genesis 2:2. So on the seventh day, he rested from all of his work. And then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So God sets it up right up front, setting apart a day, saying you need rest. He needed rest, and he rested from all the work that he had done. Now, later on in Genesis, as we look at that word rest, and as God is telling people to go to rest, and as God is even going to rest, later on, and throughout the book of Genesis, and throughout the whole Old Testament, every time somebody needed to rest and go to a place of rest, it's a Hebrew word. It's this Hebrew word that's called, right now we say it manucha, but in Hebrew it's actually menucha. So menucha, everybody say that, menucha. Okay, you're doing it wrong. You see, you have to get the phlegm out of your throat. Okay, so like this, menucha, like that. Okay, ready, go. Oh, some of you guys spit on each other. That's gross. So here's the thing. You have to have menucha. Menucha is this place of rest, this place where it's the most peaceful. It's a place of total rest. And God tells us we have to go to this place of whole rest. And it even tells us that God was going to this place of whole rest, of total rest. Now, it's even one of our commandments. You guys know the 10 Commandments? You guys ever heard of those things? You know, thou shalt not kill. That's a good one, right? Then you also have in the fourth commandment that you shall take the seventh day and use it for rest and rest in God. That's a pretty good commandment, right? A lot of times we as Christians, we kind of tend to not do that though. Sometimes we think, oh, well, you know, Jesus, he did away with the law, so we don't have to really follow that fourth one. But it's still kind of a good idea, right? just as still not killing people is still a pretty good idea, and not stealing stuff, still a pretty good idea, it's still a really good idea to rest. Now, here's what happened, though. See, in that day and age, and a long time ago, all of a sudden you had the cultures of that day, and they got this idea of rest, and it became what's called Sabbath. And the Sabbath was taken in fulfillment of that fourth commandment. But here's the thing, is they took that idea of Sabbath, and they said, okay, this is what God is telling us to do. We don't work at all on the seventh day. There's no work. You don't do anything on that seventh day. You don't do any work. You don't do anything like that. And that's how you rest. How about all of you? Do we have that same idea? I'm just not going to work. I'm going to take a day off and I'm going to sleep in bed all day. I'm not getting out. We're not going to work. They just say, okay, that's it. That's how you rest, is you do nothing. I have a friend of mine who's Jewish, and he grew up in a very, very strict Jewish home, and he doesn't quite follow it the same way now that he's an adult, but when he was a kid, on Sabbath day, they weren't even allowed to turn on a light. It was too much work, which was super confusing to me, because it's like, I get it. You can't turn on a light, but you lit a candle. Like, you had to take the lighter and do this. That makes no sense to me. And then I had to always ask him, okay, so if it's too much work to turn on a light, how do you go to the bathroom? Because if you're just sitting there saying it's too much work to go, I don't want to go to your house on Sabbath. This is gross. But all of a sudden they said it's too much. You can't do anything. And that's what we see in the Bible too, is there was a lot of times where the Sadducees and the Pharisees, they were making rules around Sabbath and around rest. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like in the Gospels, where we see that Jesus is healing people, and he got in trouble for healing people on the Sabbath. That was one of the reasons why they wanted to kill him. We talked about this in the series on John. So we talked all about this. He's healing people on the Sabbath, and they're like, oh my goodness, you told somebody to pick up their mat and walk away. He's like, yeah, but I healed him. Like, yep, but you made him walk. That's too much work. Like, they had all these crazy rules of what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do when you're working. And they thought Jesus, they're like, hey, Jesus, look, you're working. You keep working all the time, because when you're working, you're healing people. And if you're healing people, you're working. You're not allowed to do that on the Sabbath. That's illegal. That is wrong. You can't do that. But what did Jesus say to him? Jesus, we see that in John 5:17. He says this, my Father is always at work to this very day, and I too am working. So what does that mean for Sabbath then? If his Father is always working and he is always at work, but then we also had Genesis, and it says that, hey, all of a sudden God took a break and he's telling us to do the same, but God is still always working. Does that mean that we're supposed to work, to not work? What do we do? It could be confusing, right? I want to point back over to Genesis 2:2 for a second. In Genesis 2:2, notice that it says that God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. He did all the work of creating, and he took a break from that. It doesn't say that he took a break from all work. It doesn't say that in there God just stopped doing anything, that God laid in bed all day and he made it a Hulu day. Like, it doesn't say that God just said, I'm out. I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling out. No, he stopped creating. He took a break from what he had been doing in creation. He took a break. And then Jesus tells us that he's working all the time, and then so is he. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean for Sabbath for us? What does that mean for us? Are we supposed to work? Are we not supposed to work? Like, how does that actually work? Well, I would tell you this. God didn't just all of a sudden create things and then just stop everything. Like, the world still kept going. Things kept going, so God was always at work, probably in different things. But he didn't just say, all right, we're just going to watch Netflix. We're just going to chill. Because what would happen if you do nothing in your day of rest? We do that all the time. I do nothing. Well, what happens if you just spend all day watching Netflix? Let's give that example. How many of you guys have done that? Where you've gone to work, you've come home from work, and you're like, I need a rest. I'm gonna stay in bed all day long. I'm just gonna watch Netflix. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna binge all of my shows, right? How many of you have done that? I've done that. I'm raising my hand. I've done that. Yeah, I'm all of a sudden like, all right, I'm not doing nothing today. What happened the next day? Did you feel rested? No. Why? Because here's what happens. Yes, you may not have been working, but you're resting, but at the same time, your mind is still working, isn't it? Your mind is still going. Your mind is still functioning. Your mind is still thinking about all of the things that you had going on. Your mind is still thinking. How many of you guys do that where you binge something, you're watching something, but the whole time you're still thinking about work? You're still thinking about family or drama or difficulty or something like that. My wife is like that. I love my wife. I love how my wife's brain works because her brain works totally different than mine, right? Her brain is different, and I truly do love this. I think it's great. We'll be watching a TV show or Netflix or something like that, but at the same time, she can't just watch something. She also has to have something that on a tablet. She's coloring. She's doing something like that, and then she's also thinking about work, or she has her mind on something else, and she'll be thinking about family, and then she has enough time. She looks at me and says, what are you thinking? I say, I'm thinking nothing. And I will tell you, if I tell you I'm thinking nothing, I'm probably thinking nothing, right? So now all of a sudden she's thinking all these things, and I'm just like, wow, that's amazing, because it really is amazing. Her mind works in that way. She can think of like 10 different things at the exact same time. Mine doesn't. I focus on like one thing, and then I usually lose my train of thought. That's how I preach too sometimes, sorry. I would tell you though, like I lose my train of thought, because that's just not how my brain works, but her brain works that way. So that makes it harder for her though too, because when she needs downtime and she's like, I just want to rest. I'm gonna take some time, and then she does nothing all day. It's not like she's doing nothing all day. Her brain doesn't shut off. And so she's continually getting tired, and she's continually thinking about all these things and continually talking about this. And then the next day, all of a sudden, she goes back into work. She's like, I'm still so tired. I even thought about this like all day. So tired, and I get that. I do that sometimes too, where I obsess and I can't get over something. So how do we do that? What does the Bible tell us to actually do? And how does the Bible actually work with this? Like, how are we supposed to rest in a way that is restful? Not distracted rest. I would tell you guys Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff. That's distracted rest. But that's not real rest. That's just trying to turn off your brain, but not really working. So that's distracted rest, and distracted rest isn't rest. So how do we really rest? Well, the Bible tells us multiple times in several different places, like all throughout the Bible, we see this. We see this in so many different places, but it starts in here. We can rest in God. We can rest in Jesus. It says this in Psalm 62:1. My soul finds rest in God alone. He is my rock. He is my salvation. Then Jesus tells us this, and I love this. So Jesus tells us this because this is so important right here. Here's Jesus in Matthew 11:28-30. He says to this, come to me, all you who are weak and weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle in heart, and you will find rest from your souls. Meaning, and I love that part, rest for your souls. Meaning, true rest, real rest that actually feels like rest, isn't just rest of your body and your mind, it's also rest in your soul. It's rest in that inner part, that deep part of yourself. You need to have rest in your soul and your mind, your body, your spirit, and all of the things. Jesus says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. In several places in the gospel, in Mark and also in Matthew, we see this. For the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. Meaning Son of Man, meaning Jesus. Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath even. Meaning he's the one. He is over all of the Sabbath. So what does that mean? That Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. Why would we even put it like that? Here's why I think it is. Because for so long before Jesus, people had this idea that we have to please God and we have to always do everything to please God. And at that time, when you took rest and it was just, you're not going to do anything at all today. You're going to do nothing. You can't pick up your mat. You can't turn on a light switch. You can't do anything today. It wasn't so much so that way you could rest. It was because we have to do this because it pleases God. And it was the wrong mindset, whereas God was actually saying, look, I know you because I made you, and you need rest. Instead, people were saying, I know I need rest because I have to please God, and their mind shift was different. So now all of a sudden, people are always just trying to please God, and they're trying to do things for repairing their sin, and they're trying to repent. And at that time, also, you had the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and they're giving all these rules over everything and everything that you would do. And you had to do so many things in order to please God that became your only concern. I have to please God. But at the same time, God was also saying, I want a relationship with you. And so when Jesus died on the cross and we had forgiveness of our sins, all of a sudden there went away condemnation and brought on communion and relationship and rest with Jesus. That it wasn't that we always have to worry on everything that we do just pleases God. I mean, that is something we have to still follow God. We still follow Jesus, absolutely. But it wasn't that that's the primary focus on why you do everything. Now, the primary focus is, I need to have a relationship with God. I need to have a relationship with Jesus. And that's where we find the most rest is in relationship with Jesus, is in relationship with God. So how do we do that, though? Because I absolutely hate it. I always hate it when preachers, and I'm guilty of this, I've done this, I do this, I know this. When preachers all of a sudden say, oh, you're feeling anxious? The Bible says don't be anxious about anything, just trust in God. What does that make you do? Feel more anxious, right? Where it's like, hey, wait a minute, how do I do that? How do I not be anxious in God? Same thing right here with rest. When we say, oh, you feel like you need rest, just rest in God. The Bible tells us there's like 30 verses in the Bible. The Bible tells us you can rest in God, your spirit, your soul, your body rests in God. Awesome. How do I do it? How do you do that? How do you actually rest in God? What are the steps? And that's what we want to go through today. What we want to go through, because I want to give you guys some practical steps. Now, I want to tell you guys, this is not the whole big comprehensive list. We could probably design like multiple books and have like a multiple week sermon series on this whole subject just in how to do this, right? So we could probably have a lot more content out here. But I will tell you, I wanted to give you at least 3 steps today. Just because this is a 1-week sermon until we go into Acts and all that stuff, I wanted to give you at least something that you can hold on to. And this is something that's really important, because if you guys follow these steps, if you follow these 3 things that I'm about to give you, you'll at least be able to start having a little more rest in God and know a little bit more about what this is. So step number 1 is this. You need to find your menucha. Your menucha. Again, that same word, menucha. It's such a weird sounding word that doesn't sound very good, but it's such actually a beautiful word in what it means. It means you need to find your place. Your resting place, the place where you're able to rest the most, the place that you get the most peace, the place where you have the most joy. And we see this actually exhibited in Jesus. Like, I love this about the Gospels. I love this about the Bible. Jesus doesn't just tell us to do things. Jesus did things and showed us how to do them before he ever tells us how to do them. And throughout the Gospels, we see Jesus going and finding his menucha. In fact, we see it actually in Luke in 5:16, Luke chapter 5:16, it says, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And we see that in Matthew, where Jesus, all of a sudden, he takes off, he goes and he prays in the garden. We see that over in Luke, where Jesus goes up into the mountaintop. I would tell you this, we're not going up to a mountaintop like Jesus. When we think of mountains, we think of the Cascades. They're going up to hills. But still, he was up at this top, and he's going out into nature in this lonely place. We see Jesus in several of the Gospels going out to more gardens and taking off. In Mark, I love this. In Mark, at the very beginning, all of a sudden, the crowds are starting to follow Jesus. Like, there's massive crowds that are coming to Jesus and everything. And the disciples are excited, like, yes, there's so many people that are coming. This is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. And then everybody looks around and goes, where's Jesus? He took off again. Because he knew that he needed rest. He knew he needed to get away. He knew that he needed time. So what did Jesus do? He went away to pray. And I love that he didn't leave a note. Hey, I'm going to be gone. He just did it. He went and he rested. So throughout the Gospels, we see Jesus taking off and going to resting places, to his menucha. He's going to these places that he can be alone, that he can pray, that he can find solitude, that he can rest, that he can feel full of rest. They're places where like the world disappears. And it makes sense for Jesus to want to go into nature, to want to go into the gardens, to want to go into those places. Because the Bible tells us in John 1:1 that he is the beginning, that he is the Word, that the Word was with God at the very beginning. And so if he is with God at the very beginning during creation, why wouldn't he want to go into creation to find rest? So here is Jesus, and he goes and he finds his menucha. For all of us, I would say, we need to find our menucha too. You need to find it for yourself. Everybody's is different though. I can't tell you where the place is that you find the most rest. I can't tell you what it is because it's different to everybody's personality. I would tell you this. There's a lot of people that tell me that, oh yeah, they go out when they want to find rest, they go up on a hike and they go in the mountains, they go into the wilderness. I'm allergic to like all of the wilderness. I don't find any rest in there. I find itchiness and sneezing. So that is not my menucha. But I will tell you, everybody's is different. For me, where I start to find rest sometimes during the weeks when I go on a walk. I go on a walk, and I've told you guys about this several times, where I go on a walk with Jesus, and I go on a prayer walk, and I just start walking, and I find some rest, and I find some peace, but that's short and it's temporary. I find some rest when I go to the gym. I find some rest and some peace when I do that, because it is really, really hard to think about all of the things of the world when you're also pumping iron and listening to heavy metal in your headphones. Yes, I'm that guy, but it's Christian heavy metal, so it's good. Bunch of people screaming, Lord saves. It's great. But now it's hard to find that. But I'll tell you, the place that I find the most peace, the most joy, like the place, this is my menucha. Like at any point that I need to find a place that I need really quick, I go for a walk, I go to the gym, right? And that's where the whole world starts to fall away and I start to be able to think of stuff. But where I really go, where I really find peace, where I really find my menucha, where I really find that place where no matter what is happening in life, like the whole world can be burning. There could be all kinds of craziness. There's all kinds of stresses at work. There's all kinds of stresses at home. There's all kinds of stresses everywhere around me. But there is one place that I go where everything falls away, where there is just not a care in the world, where all of my thoughts disappear, where everything and every stress just goes away. And for me, that's going out on the water, on a boat. Taking off, going out in a Puget Sound, going somewhere, just sitting there and wave. If I can't get on a boat on that day or something like that, I just go sit by the beach and I just go sit there and watch the waves. That's where the whole world falls away. Now, I can't tell you where your menucha is, but I would tell you that everybody has one. In fact, I would tell you that everybody has probably a couple of them, but you have to find it and you have to know it. On our Friday night group, this last Friday night, we were talking about this, and we were talking about, okay, where is your menucha? Where is your place of rest? Where is your place of zen? They had all kinds of ideas. For some of them, it was taking a drive. For others, road trip. For others, it was going out and fishing. One of the people at our group was saying, I can't think of anything when I'm fishing. For me, it's a little bit different. I'm so bored when I'm fishing. I think of everything else. But for some people, that's the thing. For others, it's like going out and golfing. I would tell you, I can make menucha work when I'm golfing as long as I'm winning. But for others, it could be golfing. It could be just getting out in the wilderness. It could be just going and sitting somewhere. For others, it might be just sitting up in a cozy spot and reading a book. For others, it might be just going on a walk up in the mountain. Everybody is different. And that was the one thing we discovered too on our Friday night group is pretty much everyone that was there and was asked had a different answer. Everybody's menucha is different. Everybody's place is different. Everybody's place where the whole world falls away is different. And so you have to find that place. You have to know that place. Because that's the place where everything all of a sudden just leaves your head and your stresses start to go away. It's important to find it. And if you're somebody, you're like, I don't have any place. I don't know where to go for that. Well, then come and see me, and then let's go do some stuff and figure it out together. Let's find where that is. But step number one is this. You got to find your menucha. You got to find your place. You got to find that place of zen, that place where everything starts to fall away. But then step number 2 is this. You need to invite Jesus into that menucha with you. You see, when Jesus talks about come to me and I will give you rest, it's not just that you rest alone, that all of a sudden you go out there, you find your place of peace. That's a mistake that we often make. We go out and we say, okay, I'm going to go to this is my place only. And we forget that actually the real rest, the real true rest comes from Jesus. And we might feel rested at that time, but we need soul rest too. We need soul rest, we need body rest, we need mind rest. And Jesus, he gives us that rest. So when you find that place, that menucha, that place that you find rested, invite Jesus in. Pray. Take time to check your soul. Maybe read the Bible, maybe read something of Jesus. Talk to him. Invite him into that place. I'll tell you what, I do this all the time where I go out on a boat, and one of the first things I do is I start praying, and my mind goes blank because I'm on the water, and now everything I'm like stress-free, and I stop praying because I forget that I'm praying. All of a sudden, like when I'm thinking of nothing, I'm seriously thinking of nothing. So, but here, all of a sudden, but then I'll restart again and just say, hey, Jesus, be with me. Jesus, comfort me. Jesus, guide me. Help me to find peace in you, Jesus. It doesn't have to be like a 5-hour prayer. It doesn't have to be long prayers. It just has to be, Jesus, I'm inviting you in. Say you go golfing, that's your place. If golfing's your place, say, hey, Jesus, would you be with me in this round? Would you be with me? Show me the things in nature that are of you. Show me the things like, help me to feel closer to you. Help me to feel closer to you while I walk this. Go down to the waterfront. Jesus, I just want to take a moment and just invite you in. Spend time with Jesus. Reconnect with Jesus. Pray, let Jesus guide you. Because here's the thing. A lot of people tell me that, hey, I don't know if I can hear from Jesus. I'm not hearing anything. I don't know where Jesus is. I don't know. I'm not feeling anything. I'm not feeling anything of Jesus. But sometimes it's also because we're in very, very busy places where we are so distracted by all the stresses of the world and all the things that are all around us and the fires that we're trying to put out, when we really needed to go to that menucha. We needed to go to that place of peace and invite Jesus in, because it's in that place that we can hear Jesus the most. It's in that place where we've become the most rested, the most connected. So invite Jesus into that place with you. Just have a simple prayer and say, Jesus, would you be with me? Guide my heart. Show me your thoughts. Show me what you want me to do. God, be with me in this. It doesn't have to be a long, lengthy prayer. It could be just something simple. But invite Jesus in. I'll tell you, there's never been a person that I've met today that has gone into that place of joy, that place where all of a sudden the whole world starts to go away. And there's never been a person that I've ever talked to that says, oh yeah, I keep asking, but Jesus never shows up. No, Jesus is always showing up in that place with you. So take that time. Take that time and go ahead and invite him into your menucha. But then step number 3 is this. You see, here's the thing. We as Americans, we get so stressed out. We have so many anxieties, so many things going on. And here's the thing is we also have this idea that we're going to get rest because we got Saturday and Sunday coming. Or we've got a 2-week vacation coming. But how many of us come to Saturday and Sunday and then all of a sudden you're like, yes, freedom. And then you go back and you're not rested at all. Or you go back Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, you're like, I can't do this. Or you go back from a vacation, and you're like, I need another vacation. My wife tells me that all the time, and that's because I plan our vacations. And I put a lot in there. But I would tell you, there is a new psychology term. And it's a really, really great idea. In fact, it's an idea that follows a lot of what Jesus did. I love this throughout the Gospels. In the Gospels, Jesus isn't waiting. He's not waiting to take a rest on Saturday and Sunday. He's not saying, well, someday I'm going to take a rest. What did Jesus do? He just went and did it. He took rest when he needed to. When he needed to, he went out to his place. He went out to his menucha. He got away, and then he came back, and he was rested, and he's ready to go. When he needed to, he left, and he did that. Now, I know that's an impossibility for a lot of you, Because a lot of you are like, well, hey, wait a minute. I got families. I got responsibilities. I got to go to work. You can't just go up to your boss and say, hey, I'm taking off for 5 hours or so. I'll see you later. Like that doesn't work, right? You can't do that. But there's this new psychology term, and this is actually a pretty great idea, and it kind of follows suit with what Jesus was doing, and it's called taking the 2-hour vacation. Not waiting for Saturday and Sunday, not waiting for the days off, but saying, hey, at least once a week. If you could do this every day, that's great. Every other day, awesome. But at least once a week, take a 2-hour vacation. And even call it that. It's my 2-hour vacation. I'm going out to my menucha. I'm going out to the place that I feel the most close with God. I'm going out to the place where I get away from the world. And throughout the week, take a 2-hour vacation. Get out. Take some rest. Because if we're just waiting for rest on the weekends, you're going to come back from the weekend unrested. We have to be resting throughout the week as well. So it's this thing called 2-hour vacation. You could take 2 hours and do it. And for some of you might be going, look, my schedule's too busy. I can't do this. I can't take a 2-hour vacation on any day. There's never a time where I can just go out and play golf. Or there's never a time where I can go out on a walk. There's never a time I can do this. Then I would invite you to take a look at your screen time first. How much time are we spending on Netflix or Hulu or any of that stuff? And then maybe try to reset it and say, wait a minute, I might actually have 2 hours if I pull this together. Or take a look at your schedule. If you have no time to watch TV, you have no time for anything, then maybe also take a look at your schedule, because if your schedule is so piled up that you can never get 2 hours away to spend a little bit of time in your menucha or to spend time with God, then you're going to burn out quick. So take a look at your schedule and try to figure out, what can you take away? Or what can you pawn off to a friend or a husband or wife or spouse? What can you say, hey, can you help me with this so I can go do this? And if your spouse is here right now and they're looking at you right now saying, hey, we're going to do this, be receptive. And say, yeah, you need that. And I want to help make that happen as well. Take that 2-hour vacation. You're going to find out that if you can do that even a couple times a week and you can spend time in your menucha with God, you can spend time with Jesus, you're going to come into the weekend rested. And then in the weekend, if you're taking this time and you're doing that, you're going to come back and you'll probably be a little bit more rested. And this might help you to rest in a way that actually gives you energy, that actually fills your cup, that actually fills you up. It's huge. So as we conclude today and the band comes up, I would tell you that right now, we as Americans, we as people in our communities, and I get it, there's a lot of stresses everywhere. There's a lot of stress in jobs. There's a lot of stress in families. There's a lot of stresses everywhere. But we are the most stressed out generation. There's so many things going on in our lives that we feel like we can't get any rest at all. But the Bible declares it how important rest is. And I love that, because here's all of these psychologists, here's all of these psychiatrists, here's all of these medical professionals, and they're telling us all the time how important time off is, how important rest is and true rest is. And you know what? The Bible and God has been saying that from the very beginning. We need to rest. You need to rest. And you need to rest so you can fill back up your cup. So for anyone who's here and you're thinking, man, this might be speaking to me because I'm feeling burned out. I'm feeling like my cup is empty, that I've been pouring out. And that's what it is. It's like this cup where we've got this cup of just energized bunny, juice in it, right? You've got this cup and it's just all of your energy is in this cup, but now you're putting it out to work. You're putting it out to family. You're putting it out to put out the fires all around you. You're putting it out even at church. You're putting it out at all these different places, but that cup becomes empty. For a lot of us, when that cup becomes empty, it's harder and harder to fill. So how do we fill it? We fill it back up with Jesus. We fill it back up with God. We fill it back up by finding that menucha, by spending time there, and by then saying, Jesus, be with me here. Help me, Jesus. Guide me, Jesus, in resting with you. Ask Jesus for rest. If that's something that you're needing, like in that place of rest, ask Jesus, help me to rest. Help me to get out of my head. Help me to do these things. Jesus is there. Rest with Jesus. And then do that throughout the week. Don't just wait for the weekends. Don't just wait for vacation. Because if you do, you're going to need another weekend and another vacation. But rest throughout the week. Do what Jesus did. When you need to, take that rest and take that rest with him. So my challenge for you today, my challenge for you this week is for you to find that place. Find that place where the whole world falls away. That place that is just yours, where you can just spend time with God. That place where all the cares, they go away. Find that menucha. That place of peace, that place of fulfillment and joy. And then invite Jesus in. Take time and do it. If you don't have time, make time. See how much more rested you might feel when you're taking time with Jesus in that place of rest for you.